all those who have a mom that's still living, those who have lost a mom, who have special memories, those who were adopted moms, aunts, nieces, grandmas, great-grandmas. There are some great-grandmas in the room. All those ladies in the church who have been spiritual leaders, really, in their homes. And so we just want to say Happy Mother's Day to you. When you think about ladies, sometimes I do a specific mother theme on this day, but I want to talk about relationships. And relationships are pretty important to women. They're important to everybody, actually, but women especially, I think, have just something in their heart that just they thrive and they want to grow in those. And they're probably one of the most important things. If you remember, I asked you to name one word that described the Bible. And some of it was love and all the things, hope and all those kind of things, but they all kind of came down to relationship. And that's relationship with God and relationship with others. And so I want to talk today and I want us to think about people that we do know this week. Last week, I talked about those that are around us that we wanted to reach out and connect with. We had our CFO, a speaker, and we talked about reaching out to those who don't know Jesus that are around us. Today, I want to think about those that are connected to us already. Think about a relationship that you want to build stronger, a stronger connection, and you want to make it better. This whole topic most likely won't be new things to you or to me, but it's things that every day we can get better on. So maybe you want to build a bridge to strengthen a relationship that's already good. You can continue to grow those things for your whole life. A relationship where you want to be back together. A relationship with a husband or a wife or your kids or someone at work or a Christian friend or a friend you don't know if they know the Lord. Just pick one relationship as we go through. I don't think you can pick more, but later you can take this and do it again. Pick one relationship and think of yourself as a bridge builder for communication, okay? All right? Okay, so you have that. So I want to also share this. This is a visual example of when I was young and I was learning to drive a car. Everything went pretty smoothly. And, however, my dad took me out in this little Toyota Corolla stick shift. And he was going to teach me how to drive that. And so, but don't you know, my dad, this is how he teaches. He had me go around that road and come up that road where there's a hill and there's a stop right there. And that's how he was trying to teach me. And you know, you have to take your foot off the brake and the clutch and the gas all at just the right time, right? And so what happened was I stalled. Of course. Yeah. And then you have to start it and do it again. Yep. Right? And so, but you know what? I learned how to do it. And later I drove trucks when I was in high school. I didn't drive trucks, but I worked at a produce farm, kind of like Balkers, Sewell's farm. And I would drive big trucks up to like Shippensburg. And I had to drive stick with big trucks and things. And so that helped me to get to the next level of driving that. And then we had our produce business. And occasionally I would drive a truck of big bulk bins of vegetables up to Shippensburg to the auction. And so although I stalled, I got it going again. And I learned and I got better. And I continued. And so this picture of relationships and driving, you know, sometimes in relationships we get stalled. And sometimes we have to start it again. And sometimes it doesn't seem like we're going anywhere. I was stuck on that hill. Boy, my heart was racing. Like I didn't want to drift back into the person behind me, right? And so, and also you think about, you know, there could be many repairs done on your car. Or sometimes you get some bad gas. I know I had been driving on the Beltway on the way to one of the YFC events. And I had some bad gas, and my car kept stalling on the Beltway. And I had to restart it, and I had to get some of that stuff to pour in to make it work again. but it's stalled. And so sometimes you have to put the right fuel in it as well. And so all relationships are fueled by communication. It's what makes them run. And I don't care how great the relationship might look. If you don't have good communication fuel in it, you're going to get stalled. I've been stalled, probably all of you have been stalled sometime. And so you have to get back to your communication bridge, all right? So we're going to go back to the person that you thought of that you're going to build a bridge of communication with, all right? All right, so you look at any relationship where the bridge needs built and it's not going. Sometimes someone may have stopped talking. When that happens, it stalls, right? I think a lot of newlyweds, you discover, when you get engaged, they talk a lot. And things are good. And then you get married, and maybe a few months or years later, the conversation stops. Hopefully it doesn't. Or you get busy and you wonder, why is my relationship stalled? Why is it stuck here? You're not talking as much as you used to. I read this, I'm not sure where, but did you know that 50% of wives say, my husband doesn't talk to me like I'd like him to? That's half. 86% of divorces, one of the major reasons was we just didn't communicate. So the problem is communication. And you know what? The thing is, it's not really an exact science, is it? There's not, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. It's not that way, right? And so it's more like an art, or maybe one of those pictures you're painting. Communications is not an exact science. And so whenever you're in a problem, think about this, all right, with your car. Whenever your car breaks down or a problem, those kind of things, and if you're not a mechanic, you take it to a mechanic. Whenever you have a plumbing problem, if you're not a plumber, you call the plumber, you call an expert. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to go to Jesus. We're going to go to the expert and best communicator of all times. He's the great teacher. He knew how to say things, and what Jesus had to teach, he did that through communication, and so he's an example. So I want to start with us building communication bridges and look at what Jesus did. And hopefully our relationships will look like Jesus to us. The first thing is to build trust. If you can't trust what I'm saying, there's no real communication at all, really, right? You just dismiss it if you can't trust. If I said to you, well, 80% of what I tell you is true, would you trust? Like, how would you know what's true and what's not? Right? If you inject any element of mistrust into a relationship, it destroys communication, tears down the bridge. Jesus said, Matthew 5:37, simply let your yes be yes and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Jesus is saying, if you don't build trust with your words, it comes from the evil one. Just yes, yes, and no, no. Back then they had this whole system of trust, and they couldn't swear on God's name. They had a law against it. The closer you get to God, the more you can trust what the person says. We have things, if someone said, let me show you. I swear based on heaven where God lives. I don't swear, but I'm just reading that. That's closer to God. So if you're saying that I'm saying this to God, you can trust that. I'm meaning that. And so we kind of do things. You ever hear kids say, cross my heart, hope to die? I don't like that, but that means you can trust me on this one, right? Right? Even a word like this, as I was preparing this, I thought of David's sister, because they kind of joke around with each other. It's really fun to watch them. And she'll say, honest, like really? Because they joke around so much. But so even a word like honest, does that mean all the other times you were lying? Or joking? But now, this time, honest, now you can really trust me, right? So Jesus is saying, let your yes be yes and your no, no. what you say, do. So the more you allow what you say to be something that can be trusted, the better communication inevitably you're going to have. So there are a lot of ways that we can tear down that trust. Some of the things can be things like lies, right? If your yes isn't yes and your no isn't no, you become someone that can't be trusted. Flattery. You know what flattery is? It's just really like a positive kind of a lie. It's designed to manipulate you to get you to do what they want you to do. It's flattery. Psalm 12:3 says, "May the Lord cut off all flattering lips." Interesting. I read that anew just this weekend. Another thing that can tear down trust is broken promises. If you break a promise with someone, you break their trust. And so, even with children, sometimes they'll overlook it. But, we say we're going to do this, and then something happens and we don't do this. But they might not say anything, but they still will wonder. Silence, another thing that can break trust. You're not talking. You're not letting someone get to know you. Did you know that sharing yourself is part of letting someone learn to trust you? Opening yourself up. And so if you're silent all the time, people don't know what's going on. It's hard to know whether you can trust or not. So Jesus taught, if you really want to have good communication, build it on trust. You can't have high quality communication without a high level of trust. And so, all of us are human. And some of us may say, well, how do we or I rebuild trust? I've already lied. I've already been broken and destroyed. How do we rebuild this foundation of trust so we can start to talk again? Only one word at a time. One thing at a time. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. And it may take time. And so one time, you can believe me. Next time, yes, I will, and you do. No, and I don't. One situation at a time. Sometimes our children they do restorations. And one of the things they do is jack up a barn or a house. And what they have to do is secure the foundation. And they do that, and then they put the house or barn back down on it. They had to do that with our barn at our house. They jacked it up and secured things and put new posts in and new things, just like our relationships. Sometimes we need to jack it up, secure the foundation, and then start again. The next thing that I have is to guard your heart and your mouth. In Matthew 12:34, it says, "For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks." Mark 7:15, it says, "Your souls aren't harmed by what you eat, but by what you think and say." So what I say affects what I think, affects what I say, affects what I think, affects what I say, affects what I think. It's kind of a cycle. And so angry words result in a wounded soul, and a wounded soul results in a bitter heart, and a bitter heart results in more wounded, angry words, and it's a vicious cycle. And one of the studies that I have, they call it the crazy cycle. We can get in that cycle. And so Jesus said, if you want to have great communication, you've got to guard your heart. Words are never a slip of the tongue. They're always an overflow of the heart. And so that's what he meant when he said, "For out of the overflow of your heart, the mouth speaks." And so I may not wanted to say it, but I felt it, or I wouldn't have said it. Communication starts with what I think and feel, and then I speak. I have a question. Do you ever let your thoughts leak out into your words? Ever let your thoughts leak out into your words? That's basically what he's saying, right? You weren't going to say it, but you got angry and something happened and it just came out. Jesus said, you know what? It's inevitable if it's in your heart. Eventually it's going to happen. So part of communication is guarding your heart. And the truth is, we'll never experience real change in our relationships until we've had a change of the heart. And only he can do that. And that's where it begins, when he changes our heart. The next thing is asking and listening. You can ask a question, but if you don't listen, it doesn't help. There's no better example of listening, really, if you think about it, than God. Jesus and God, they're going to be our example in this whole thing. Psalm 116:1 says, I love the Lord because he listens to my prayers for help. He listens to every one of them. He's our example. He teaches us to be listeners. But sometimes we're not always the greatest listeners. Most of us, some people are really good. But I think a lot of us, we tend to want to talk. We tend to want to talk and speak. And a lot of times when we're listening, we're filtering it through our own opinions, our own situation that we've been through, and or what we're going to say next. I have this story, I'm going to whop you. You don't think that, but you're going to tell that story. Yeah, remember when I did this? And so some say that we really only hear about 20% or so of what is being said to us. 1 in 5 sentences that we only hear. Proverbs 18:13 says, listen before you answer. If you don't, I don't know what translation. It says, you're being stupid and insulting. That's pretty straight up. It hurts you and me. It doesn't just hurt the other person, it hurts both of us. If I do listen, I'm being wise and it helps both of us. And when I'm willing to listen, I'm being loving. And so if you learn to truly listen, you can change the lives of people around you. That saying of, you don't always remember what somebody said, but you remember how they made you feel. If they really listened and they really understood, they feel that love. There's communication there. But then Proverbs 21:23, it says, keep your mouth closed and you'll stay out of trouble. Proverbs 10:19, don't talk so much. You keep putting your foot in your mouth. Be sensible and turn off the flow. I like that one. Be sensible. Turn off the flow of your mouth. The less I talk, the smarter people think I am. Did you know that? So some of the things I have in here are some things that I had some counseling classes, but one of the things about genuine listening, it involves these things: looking at people, listen with your eyes and your ears, invest in people, stop labeling people or judging people and start listening to them. Don't have thoughts ahead of time about it. Stop what you're doing and listen to the person. It's L-I-S-T-E-N. Okay. Look at people, invest in people, stop what you're doing and listen. Think about what they're saying, not what I'm going to say next. I have the answer for you. Think about what they're saying. Empathize what they're feeling and going through. Don't try to one-up them. We do that. We all do that. Conviction. We all do that. Notice body language. Learn to pick up on those things. If they're sitting like this, they're not open to hearing really too much. They're already thinking about what they're going to come back with, right? And I'm not going to go too much into psychological things, but as some of you may know, Carl Rogers, he said about understanding and listening, nothing feels so good as being understood. Jesus understands. Jesus knew those things. Nothing feels so good as being understood. So all of us really probably at some point have felt like nobody understands. You felt loneliness maybe. You're trying to talk to someone and not getting anything back from them, especially when it's something important. something really bothering you or on your heart. So far, we're going to build trust. Guard your thoughts and what comes out, and listen. And ask questions. Asking questions is also a decision that, you really want to improve your communication. Asking questions, they can challenge and they can clarify things. Sometimes if we have a day off at the same time, I love those days. It's not often enough. But when we do, he might have a totally different thought of the day than I have of the day. Clarify, So what does today look like? What do you want to do? Do you want to go kayaking, or do you want to, what do you want to do? And so clarify, because they might be so excited about something totally different than what you planned. So listen and ask questions and clarify. It's very important in communication. Repeat it back, another counseling technique. What I hear you saying is, those things. All right, the next thing is empower and build up. The book of Proverbs tells us that death and life are in the power of the tongue. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. If you think about the story of the Tower of Babel, okay, back in the book of Genesis, they're trying to build this tower because they want to be closer to God, like God, right? And did God take away their tools? He did not. He took away their communication, right? How important was that? He destroyed what they were doing by taking away their communication, not by taking away their tools. And so the project crumbled. Even God used that. Ephesians 4:29 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs." So we really have power in our words to build into other people's lives in just a few words. It's simple words like "good job" or "I'm sorry, will you forgive me?" Or just "I love you." David and our boys were away turkey hunting. And we didn't get to talk a lot. They're out in the middle of nowhere, but he just said a text one night, "I love you so much." Simple, little words. And so think of all the times in your life when your life has been changed with just a few words at the right time. Maybe if you look back, maybe it was a coach or your grandma or an aunt or a spouse or a teacher, whoever it might be in your life. My grandma, my dad's mom, I loved her so much. And she would once in a while say a word of wisdom, but she was a really good listener. And you could just go and sit on the front porch and talk, and she listened. And that's the love to me. Quality time together, and then maybe she'd have one word of wisdom, one sentence. And so those people who had simple words that you can remember through your life, that they had just the right word at the right time. In James 2, he reminds us that we have a tough time with our tongues sometimes. He goes on to say, out of the same mouth comes blessings and curses. How does that happen? Out of the same mouth. Blessings and curses. You know what? Some of you know Gary Chapman, 5 Love Languages. He's a counselor. He says about communication. Communication is basically an act of the will. It's a decision. It's a decision. You can have blessings or curses coming out of the same mouth. So we have to decide some things, and Jesus really, he shows us the example. The next part is speaking truth, being honest. Proverbs 24:26. An honest answer is like a kiss on the lips. Jesus was honest in his communications and all of his relationships. Ephesians 4:15, it says, speaking the truth in love. So you balance the truth with love. It takes both. And when you look at Jesus, how Jesus spoke, he wasn't always what we might consider nice. but he's balancing truth and love. Okay? Jesus said to the Pharisees, "You guys are hurting people with what you're saying. You're a bunch of snakes and hypocrites." True, but love at the same time. Jesus talked to Simon Peter and he said, "Get behind me, Satan." Wow, that's a hard one to hear, right? It wasn't nice, but it was honest, it was truth, and it was what was happening at the moment. Jesus also had the power to encourage people with his honesty. He did both. And so we have to decide, do we want to impress someone or impact them with life-changing honesty? And as people receiving that, we have to be open to that as well. Like to know that this is a hard thing for someone to say, but they're loving me enough to say it. And so to receive it. It says, speaking the truth in love. So we all say wrong things at some times, and things get lost in the translations, right? You know, Gary Chapman in the 5 Love Languages. If you haven't read that book, read it. Or if you do Audible, get it on Audible. But you really understand people differently, what means love to them. And, you know, someone may be doing acts of service, and those acts of service is like French. And what I really need is quality time. And maybe I speak Japanese. And you speak in a whole different language. And so sometimes things get lost in the translation. When I was looking that up, did you know that a long time ago, you know the car, it was called a Nova? Have you heard that before? You probably heard this. A GM car, they named it the Nova. And they didn't know that it means doesn't go in Spanish. What a name for a car, right? I'm guessing in Spain they maybe chose a different name if they were able to sell it at all, right? So, yeah. Yep. Encourage each other, build each other up. Speak truth, speak honestly. Jesus had healing touch. Jesus healed. In Luke 5:13, Jesus reached out and touched the man, and he said, of course, I will be healed. And then the last part of the verse, and the leprosy left him immediately. So he walked up to the person that no one even wanted to see and touched his sores. He healed him. Jesus used the touch to heal. Touch doesn't have to be just physical skin things, but touch heals our lives. His touch was gentle and it was real. He changed people's lives. And so I want you to never underestimate the power of touch. We communicate our love through touch. Jesus taught us to do that. And I've told you this before, but whenever I need a hug, actually I asked Cass to give me a hug this morning. At home I'll say, you know what, you look like you really need a hug, which means I need a hug. So touch is important. And then the last thing I want to look at is visuals. Jesus was the master at visuals. And so things like he sat down with a religious leader, Nicodemus. Do you remember this story? And he was trying to do a picture for him. The fact that Christianity doesn't mean doing better. I got to do better. I got to do better. In John 3:3, Jesus replied, with all the earnestness I possess, I tell you this, unless you are born again, visual, born again, you can never get into the kingdom of heaven. What he's saying is start over, a brand new start, having a new life. He's giving him a visual of new life. Jesus talked about who he was. He'd say things like, I am like the door. I am like the way. I am the way. I'm the door. He sat beside the woman at the well, and he talked about, I'm the living water, right? He talked to the farmers, and he said, the word is like seed that's planted. He used visuals. Some people really are visual. They learn that way. I learned that way. You might be able to tell that. He talked to the fishermen. I want you to make you a fisher of men. So all these kind of things are parables. You know that word, parables. They're stories that Jesus told, and he gave a picture of what life was really like. It's like your car stalling, and you need to restart it. It's like your relationship stalling, and you need to restart it. So Jesus gave pictures. And so if we want to be great communicators, pictures should be part of the communication. Ask God to bring you a visual of how you can explain something that you're struggling with. All right, so you already know what we talked about today. You know, all these things you know that you probably already know. I would guess that many of you have lived longer than I, and some of you have already heard these things. Who doesn't know that they need to listen? Anybody? You don't know you need to listen? You need to listen to build each other up with our words. We all know that, right? Who doesn't know that you break your trust? When you break trust, it breaks down your communication. We all know that, right? We all know these things. They're simple things, yet we're human. We fail at times. And so I chose this on Mother's Day because it's such an important topic for all of us, especially mothers. Mothers love when everyone's getting along, everyone's relating, all their children are there, or all their families there. They love that. And so I want to encourage you today to think about the one person, reach out to someone, and begin to communicate these things with them. Don't do them all at once. Begin to build trust by you fill in the blank. Guard your heart, what comes out of your mouth, by you fill in the blank. Listen about whatever situation. Sometimes, you know there's an issue. Take the first step, build the bridge to get over there and just say, I feel like there's something in our life that's just not right. Like, is there anything wrong? Did I do something to hurt you? Take a step. Listen about whatever it might be. Empower or encourage someone else by whatever it might be. Maybe you just want to be a better listener this week. Try to focus in the moment. Be a listener. Don't think about what you're going to say. Just listen. Give them the gift of listening. Or maybe you want to share a word of healing. Give somebody a hug. Maybe it's a well-phrased question to help someone see something they don't take offense, but that they see something they never saw before. Or a visual picture. Wow, I never thought of it that way. That's a really good example. And so Jesus, he's the one that can give us a new heart. And it's really what he came to do. We celebrated Resurrection Sunday. He came so that we could get a new heart. And when we talk to him, we communicate to him. We can do it right now. We can do it any place. And he can bring about that communication, that healing and the love that we want to experience, and that Jesus shaped hole in our hearts. And so he's the prime example of how we can have relationships in this earth. And so, you can talk to God whenever you want. We know that. We don't have to shut our eyes right now. I want to encourage us not to shut our eyes, all right? We're going to close in prayer. And, in our minds, you can say, God, I want a new heart. I want a new heart. I've done some really dumb things, God. I've blown it. I admit it. I've sinned. God, would you forgive me? And maybe it's gone to somebody. Please forgive me. I want more. I don't want to live like this the rest of our lives. Give me a new heart. Help me start again. Help me put gas when I stalled and start it again. God, thanks that you hear me. That's why he came to earth, really. He came to earth because he came to let us know that he's hearing us. God's hearing us through Jesus. And to reestablish the connection with us. Open the lines and the channel of communication for God through Jesus. He's done that, and he's such a great example. But sometimes this communication thing is tough, right? And we pray, God, I pray that you would just build your kingdom here. Build your kingdom through me. Build your kingdom through me, through others. And so that's our prayer. And God, just give us your strength to communicate and be communication builders in new ways. Amen.